Start your day with Quaker Protein Instant Oatmeal. The instant oatmeal ready to help you tackle whatever your day brings. Like wrangling your toddler into their car seat. That was fun. Coaching your 6th graders soccer team. Go girls! And carrying all the groceries in one trip. Whew. Try Quaker Protein Instant Oatmeal, granola, and bars. Great taste and a good source of protein. Quaker, bring out the good.
Welcome to the Susan LoPresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul podcast. This is the go-to space for midlife and mature women who are ready to reclaim their health, boost their energy, and live long, vibrant, and purposeful lives. Each week, we dive deep into natural wellness, holistic healing, anti-aging strategies, and healthy lifestyle habits to help you feel your best physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Whether you're navigating menopause, working through chronic conditions, or simply wanting to age gracefully and intentionally, this show is your sanctuary for science-backed insights, powerful stories, and soul-nourishing inspiration. So if you're a woman in your 40s, 50s, or older looking to thrive in the next chapter of your life, you're in the right place. Today's guest is Cathy Williams. Cathy is a body-based healing and creative arts therapy expert and founder of Intuitive Self. She helps people reconnect with their intuition through somatic and expressive arts. An award-winning author and speaker, Cathy draws on her personal healing journey to support others in reclaiming their body, mind, and heart. With over 17 years in community development and social justice, she brings compassion, creativity, and depth to her work. Cathy holds a Master of Social Science and multiple qualifications in somatic therapy, expressive arts, and trauma healing. So without further ado, Cathy, welcome to my podcast. I'm so excited to have you here, and I can't wait to dive into this powerful conversation. Cathy, welcome to my podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today, and I can't wait to dive into this conversation with you.
So lovely to be connected. Thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome. Cathy, I want to begin by give us a definition of somatic healing. What is it? What can you tell us about that?
So, somatic healing is a framework and an approach that considers the whole body. It works with the whole body, the whole self, recognizing that the body is a doorway into not only our present moment experience, but all that our body has carried from our life experiences. We hold that in our body. And so my approach is to utilize the body as a resource for healing, for connection to self, for understanding the messages and signals of what our body is trying to communicate with us. Learn to be in dialogue with the body so that we can learn how to move through the world and navigate life that feels in alignment with our values.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's really, as a somatic movement therapist, when someone comes to see me, the somatic check-in is at the forefront. So I'm using a somatic lens to attune my body to their body, to see what is present and what's coming through in the bodily sensations, to invite the woman to connect with what they're feeling. And this can be an intimidating process because in the societies that we live in, we can often be encouraged to disconnect or numb ourselves
Yeah.
from our feeling body and our felt sense. So learning to have compassionate and non-judgmental ways of being in the body, coming back to the body and being curious about different bodily sensations so that we can use the body not only in our assessment of what's going on, but in our treatment. So many of the approaches that I use in my movement and art therapy is with the body. So getting people to presence the body in the space, become aware of how these different emotions or stories or memories rise through our bodily sensations, and then finding safe ways to be with that through somatic touch and movement release work.
Okay. So, am I understanding you correctly? Like, you actually can pick up the other person's emotions of where they're at, like physically? What, or did I not hear that correctly?
No, that's beautiful.
Oh,
So my part of my work is to presence the body in the space
okay.
and get people curious about what emotions are present and rising to the surface. But it's not my job to interpret what's happening for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this because I'm not going to work with someone and then be like, oh, well, if you're feeling a sensation here, that must mean A, B, and C. What I see my role as is getting people curious into that feeling state and that felt sense, and then seeing with different prompts that I guide with, seeing what they identify it as. So this work is really about supporting women to identify what's happening in their body so that they make meaning of it. They make meaning of their experience, because it's not up to me to interpret what's happening for someone else and to put my story or my interpretation onto someone else's experience, but rather to get them curious about what's happening for them and what that might mean or what emotional state that might mean. So then we can work from that place.
Now, do you find that they're able to get in touch with their emotions right away, or does this process happen over time?
It's so contextual, but the majority of people I work with, for whatever reason, they're different body response to different events in their life might mean that they struggle to allow themselves to be fully present. It might mean that they have learnt coping mechanisms, which mean that they don't want to connect or they don't feel safe to connect
Yeah.
with an emotion. And I really relate to that. My story is very much that I was disconnected from my body, and I found different ways to numb and disconnect and distract myself from feeling, because I was scared of feeling my feelings and I was scared of being too overwhelmed with a feeling or an emotion that
Mhm.
I wouldn't be able to function. And, as women, we're needed. We're needed to show up as daughter, as mother, in our work
Mhm.
roles, in our relationship, in service to the world. And it can be an intimidating process to sit with our feelings. So, yes, it's very common for women to have reservations and to have built armor and coping mechanisms to stop themselves from feeling. And a big chunk of my work is allowing, working out different gentle entry points to allow that process to be a safe and comfortable one to ease our way into. So we're not going straight into full-on processes. It's a gentle journey.
Right. Now, what if someone has a repressed trauma, let's say from childhood, and it's repressed, so they're not aware of it emotionally or intellectually, and so they're experiencing symptoms, but they don't know why. Now, when you get to the root cause, how does that affect a person? They actualize the event, it comes to life for them, and isn't that kind of traumatic to witness that?
If that is the experience, it's
Yeah.
very different for different people, but it's not about going back into the event as such.
Okay.
It's more getting curious as to what that, so for example, I was talking to someone just yesterday about this anger. They identified the emotion as anger, that they were feeling this tension in their body.
Hmm.
And they said that they called it a short fuse, and that they're really quick to anger. And I asked her, where do you feel that in the body? And she identified it as a living in the stomach, and then it rising up to her face with like a heat sensation.
Okay.
So the process that intuitively came through with that was not to go straight into the mind and analyze what might be stirring up that anger or what memory might be linked to the anger, but rather to just be with the particular sensation she was feeling in the stomach
Yeah.
and get curious about it and bring expression to that part of herself. So we played music, I gave different movement prompts, and really invited this intuitive movement to rise, to get bigger, to expand, and see how it wanted to be expressed through movement. And I did this in a particular way where it was only, I think it was only 5 or 6 tracks. So we had a 20-minute container of giving expression to the body. And, part of the philosophy is when we move when we move our body, we're changing the psyche. So we're changing our relationship to that emotional state.
Yeah.
And so different movements came through. She was able to give expression to actually, rather than repressing it and feeling shame for feeling that emotion, which of course women, have been taught shame. Instead of repressing it, we actually were able to platform it, give it center stage, so to speak, give it expression through the movement, release part of it, get curious about what was there to be more known to her. And then after the movement, we continued the exploration out onto the page with different colors, lines, and shapes. That's where I bring in the creative arts therapy.
Yes.
And we gave that emotion a chance to express what it wanted to express. And what came through wasn't a memory, but was just this dialogue with self of wanting to be more heard.
Oh,
So that's an
very.
example of being curious about an emotion and a sensation, but
Right.
not necessarily bringing up a re-traumatizing event, but rather just seeing what's there that wants to be more known to you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank
Does
you
it?
for
Good.
clarity. Yes, thank you. So tell me, what does healing mean to you personally, and how has your own journey that you went through, how has that shaped your work today? Tell us about your healing journey.
Oh, that's a beautiful inquiry. Healing, my my understanding of healing is that there's no arrival point. So it's not a linear journey. It is very much a curiosity to be with all parts of ourselves. And for me, it's been about learning to be really loving and compassionate to all parts of myself, welcome all parts of myself, all emotions and not judge myself for how I'm feeling. That's been incredibly healing, that I have had many different stories or narratives or perceptions of myself and thought that I should be a certain way, but rather allowing myself to get curious about what is actually mine and what I
Mm-hmm.
might have taken on, whether that's intergenerationally or whether that's society's stories or society pressure, and being able to recognize what's mine in all of this and connect back to my body and my intuition. So part of my story is that I lived very much in my head. So I was disconnected from my body because I was afraid to feel, and I kept myself really busy. I was in this overproductive do, never take time for myself, never take a break, and never really pause to feel. And it was in that state of being that I started to make choices for myself that weren't connected to my intuition. So one of those pathways was meeting a man and finding myself in a romantic relationship with them where I really ignored that little voice inside me and the feelings in my body that didn't feel comfortable in this relationship. And I started to notice that my intuition was present and I had, like a twisted gut feeling, and I felt very small in the presence of this person. But I kept on letting my mind say, give him the benefit of the doubt and, oh no, you're overthinking this. And I sort of bypassed all of those feelings of anxiety, which I recognize much later now as my body giving me sort of warning signals.
Yes.
And in that relationship, I definitely disconnected from my intuition. I made myself really small, and I started to to dwindle. I started to be a different version of myself. And it took me a long time to recognize that I was in a toxic dynamic and a psychologically abusive relationship. And I believe that that was the biggest catalyst for me going on my healing journey of starting to befriend my intuition again.
Yeah.
And in my book, one of the first chapters is on intuition. And I share an extract from a journal that I kept shortly after I left him, where I wrote a letter to my intuition. And Susan, the start of this letter is me actually apologizing to my intuition
Yeah.
because I thought that she had abandoned me, but I had actually stopped listening to her. So it was through this process of learning to befriend my intuition, having the courage to connect with her and dialogue with her and not be so afraid of feeling my feelings anymore, that I was able to, I guess, reconcile with my intuition. And it started me on my journey of learning to work in partnership with my body rather than against it.
Now, did this happen after you left the relationship that you got in touch with your intuition again?
I believe that my intuition has always been there,
Yeah.
but
But you
I
were
did a
ignoring it in a way, right? Yeah.
yeah. And so, yes, it was after I left that I really started this intentional work with my intuition.
Yeah, I understand.
Mm.
Okay. So that's really interesting. And many women that are in midlife, they find themselves facing either emotional or even physical transitions. So, what are some of the first steps that a woman should take toward their authentic personal growth, during this time? What would you advise?
Mm. I'm really big on approaching everything with non-judgmental curiosity.
Okay, that's good.
I feel like curiosity is our friend. When we approach in this way, it means that we're not judging how we're feeling. We're not judging our body image, our approach to life. We're just getting curious about what's there. And in this way, we can start to create space to be with our feelings and reconnect with our body. And my story and my work is very much on getting curious about the body and befriending our intuition, because I feel like it's all interlinked. When we get to know our intuition and know that she's an ally, she's in our corner, we can call upon her to support us, to navigate life with, to help us make decisions that feel more aligned with us.
Yeah.
So I would start with curiosity first and foremost.
Mm-hmm. But do you notice in working with women that some of them are actually apprehensive to get to know their intuition or actually afraid of bringing something to the forefront that they've been suppressing?
I definitely notice what's very common is hesitation,
Yeah,
hesitation to go to those places.
yeah,
And I believe this is because we can be often scared of the unknown. We could be scared about what might come up. So I really like to start these processes being really curious, but being really gentle, and having safe containers where we can come back to resourcing ourselves through the breath, through the body, through somatic touch, where we can have visual guides and aids to support us so that it isn't as intimidating as one might imagine.
mm-hmm. Yes, because I'm thinking about your own personal story, and I'm sure that there's other women who are in relationships with a significant other, and there's something in the back of their mind that's telling them that this is not right. It's not right. There's something that's just not right at this point.
Something a bit off,
Right.
yes.
And yet they're hesitant to face the truth about it and move forward. So they remain stuck in that relationship because there's a saying about the devil you know is easier than the devil that you don't know. So you know what you have and you don't know if you let that go, what's the next step? And so women's a lot of times will stay stuck in a relationship or a situation, even a job that they're unhappy at.
Yes, because that's such a beautiful saying, because we do go to what is familiar.
Yeah,
If that love, even if it's abusive and it's unhealthy, if that is familiar, we know what we're going to get with that.
yeah,
So a big part of this work as well, when I invite women to start reconnecting with their body and reconnecting with their intuition, this process is about learning to trust that they have an internal compass and they have internal wisdom and internal guidance that they can trust. And trust takes time to build,
yes,
but And I know through my own journey that it took a lot of conversations with my intuition to build that trust, to regain that trust with her. But I do believe that when you start that process, you're enhancing your intuition, but through that, you're also enhancing your confidence, you're enhancing your belief in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a process, but it's so possible. And I think I really want to make that known, and to say that is that we, those places where we can trust and we can believe again and we can feel strong in our sense of self, that is
Yeah.
all possible.
Yeah. So, how can we begin as women to release old stories or wounds that may be holding us back from evolving into our fullest selves?
Oh, there's so many beautiful ways to start. So, in my book, Body Wisdom, I really encourage a variety of different modalities because we have different learning styles. We have different things that we're drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might be really comfortable with being in the body and using movement. Some people might have a journal practice where they feel more comfortable with the writing side of things.
Yeah.
Some people might not have words to give expression to their story right now, but they more comfortable putting different colors, lines, and shapes on paper, for example. And I encourage these creative self-discovery processes because I believe that we can tap into something with the psyche that, yes, is going into that unknown space,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also great wisdom there. So instead of analyzing and, sitting down and being like, okay, what's my story? We can start with what is most present right now. So we're all in different seasons of life. We've all had different life experiences. One of the things that I start with is, what has the most charge for you right now? It
Okay.
might be a particular area of life where you've got tension. It might be a really strong emotion that's really like, sitting really heavy in
Yeah.
your body. It might be a really strong desire for something. So usually when I ask, what's most alive for you right now? What has charge for you right now? When we sit with that and we open to that, something will come. Women will intuitively be led on something that's like, oh, that's what it is. That's the big one. And let's let that surprise ourselves. Yeah. Like we might have it in our mind, oh, it's my job. My job, I'm really hating my job at the moment. My boss is really giving me grief.
Mm-hmm.
But that's coming from the mind. What is it that's actually got charge? And using that example, it might not be the job so much, but it might be that there's an inner frustration that they're overgiving. They're feeling used in that role. They're
Yeah.
not feeling seen or valued. And that's what has charge. Yes, it's within the job environment and it's probably perpetuated by the boss, for example,
Mm-hmm.
but it's that feeling of being undervalued and overused and overstretching themselves in that role.
Yeah.
So if that's what's current for them and that's the story, then that's our entry point into, okay, if that's how you're feeling right now, what's the opposite of that? How do you want to feel instead? So that could be, continuing with this example, that could be that they want to feel valued, they want to feel seen. And maybe the next inquiry, and it's what I love about my work is, Susan, is that I get to work with a variety of different women in all seasons of life and move quite intuitively with what feels right to support them with.
Yeah. So, your example with the woman and her boss and not feeling seen, what would you recommend? Does she go speak to the boss and have a conversation with them, and or or does she handle it on her own in some other way?
So that example, I would start with the feeling. So that feeling of being undervalued and overstretched.
Yeah.
And we would give expression to that feeling. We would find that feeling in the body. We would allow it, give it permission to take up some space. We'd get curious about how it wanted to move and express and be heard. Then we might dive into how she is undervaluing herself. Rather than going external, we
Yes.
would go internal. And how is she undervaluing herself? How does she not see her own self?
Yeah.
Because that might then be leading to the example that she sets for how other people treat her, for
Yes.
example. So we're really in this relationship where we're giving ourselves permission to feel. We're learning different strategies to give ourselves expression, but then also regulate ourselves in the emotion. We're identifying different habits or behaviors or patterns that we're doing to ourselves and replacing them with compassionate ways of being. So we might not actually get to the external for quite some time. And by external, I mean the action of taking a stance against the boss, for
Right.
example, because we do the inner work first, and then that transforms what we then do externally.
Right. Excellent. Okay. And so self-compassion really plays a huge role in the whole healing process.
Absolutely. I feel
Yeah.
like it's number one.
Yeah.
Like we speak about self-love, and it's probably all, it's all under the same umbrella, but this way of being compassionate with ourselves, it's it's not judging how we're feeling. It's not over analyzing how we're feeling. It's allowing ourselves to be and being kind to ourselves. We're not kind enough to ourselves.
No. I was about to say that it's a lot easier for a woman to show compassion to other people before she actually shows compassion for herself.
Yes, yes, so true.
Yeah. So let's go on and talk about somatic dance movement therapy. Can you explain what somatic dance moving therapy is all about, and how does it differ than traditional talk therapy?
Mm. So again, it's really having the body at the forefront, having that somatic check-in, and giving ourselves permission to move in an expressive way. So it is, I in my line of work, I use the term intuitive movement.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not dictating how someone should move. There's no choreography, for example, but rather with this body work of growing our awareness of our body, getting curious about different bodily sensations, and seeing the body as a whole rather than just, top heavy, we are able to start to feel the inner impulses of our body. And so the intuitive movement is following the impulses of how the body might want to move or express or release or give expression to different parts of the body. And through that intuitive movement, through following the impulses, that's when the dance comes through.
Mm-hmm.
And I I try to avoid the term dance just because we all have our own internal relationship to that word. I work with a lot of women who there's a very common phrase to say, "Oh, I can't dance.
Right.
Oh, I'm not a dancer."
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, you're moving your body every day.
Yes.
your body is carrying you. It's this beautiful being that you are moving, even, unconsciously. And the term dance can be quite restrictive in that way, but we use movement principles, creative movement principles of moving different parts of the body, using tempo, using space, using different levels to encourage this movement. So, for example, in my one-on-one sessions, but also in my public workshops, we do long, like the shortest movement process would probably be about 40 minutes because we really go into getting comfortable with this movement and getting curious about how we want to move.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll support the journey with a range of different rhythms and music backgrounds to get us into a state where we're tuning out the mind and being in the body instead, and giving ourselves permission to take up space through the movement. And this doesn't necessarily mean big, grand movement and fast-paced movement, but it's giving ourselves the space in our day and in our home or in the studio to actually move how we want to move.
Wow.
So it's different to talk therapy in that it really presences the body in the space. It encourages movement. And sometimes we don't have words, or sometimes going back into an event or going back into a story about something
Mm-hmm.
can be helpful, but how does that story take up space in the body? And can it be expressed through movement rather than story?
Yeah. Wow, that's beautiful. It's
It
so
is beautiful.
interesting how you could heal in so many different ways, right?
Absolutely. And I'm a big fan of so many different types of therapeutic methods, and they each have their place. And I've certainly utilized them personally over the course of my life.
Yeah.
But what I've found with movement and art therapy is that it really worked for me because it allowed me to get curious rather than getting stuck in a loop. I found myself getting really stuck in a loop. And so when I was able to recognize that, when I was able to move it, I felt like I was naturally moving it out of my body. I was finding outlets for expressing it and changing my relationship to my story.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do in my one-on-one sessions is, women get to a point where they actually, they feel way more comfortable with moving, and they find liberation and vitality through the movement. And they might be going through something, and, through different movement processes, they come up with their own movement mantra. So they'll come up with a particular phrase, for example, I am safe.
Yeah.
And that will be matched with a particular movement or a gesture, where when they do that movement, maybe it's wrapping their arms around themselves, maybe
Right.
it's moving their body upwards in an outward motion. It's creating new patterns of existence where they're saying to their body and their whole self, I am safe. I am safe.
Mm-hmm.
I am safe. And they're doing that with the movement, so much so that it becomes embodied
Yes.
rather than just a phrase.
Right. That makes perfect sense. I could totally see how that would be helpful. What about spirituality and the sacred connection? What does a sacred connection mean to you, whether it's to the self or nature or even something greater than that?
Mm. Oh, I love that. So I think one of the through lines with my work is that it is about connection.
Right.
connection to self, being able to connect with others, being able to connect with the natural world around us and connect to something bigger. I have my own personal spiritual practice, and a lot of that connects through movement. So I feel like I find spirit through movement. I can tap into a meditative state through movement.
Oh, I love that.
And I have received messages from spirit through the movement and then out onto the page. You know, she's come to me with words and visuals that I've then captured in drawing form, and I've put them up on my altar, and they've been guides for me. They've been remembering for me. So I really do encourage people's connection with spirit and God or whoever that is for them, whatever their guidance system is, that might come through in this process because you are allowing yourself to really feel and tap into all of the different supports around us, within us, and through us.
Yeah. But now, what if you come in contact with someone who feels spiritually disconnected?
Mm,
How do you begin to open up to that sense of sacredness again?
mm. Again, I start with really gentle entry points.
Okay.
So, you know, meeting the sacred every day is one of my sayings, and it doesn't have to be this grand gesture. It doesn't have to be this week-long retreat, you know.
Right.
It can start with our intention. So my intention is to sit with my warm cup of tea and to take in my breath and to feel the earth underneath me
Mm-hmm.
and to take this sacred moment with no
Yeah.
expectation, just being, just allowing, and just being with the intention of being.
Yeah.
You know, that 5-minute practice is a sacred moment. You're carving out a sacred moment for yourself. And also to notice, use your senses to notice what you feel, what you see, what you hear, what you allow in that time. And I feel like when we bring intention to our action and intention into our day, we're naturally creating a pathway to the sacred.
Mm-hmm.
And it might feel unusual, it might feel silly, but that's okay. We're allowing all of the different feelings in that process as we get curious about the sacred
Yeah.
within and without.
This must be such a rewarding, I'll call it a career or a calling for you. And I'm sure when you're working with women and you see a transformation in them from this work, it has to just light you up and feel such a sense of gratitude that you found this work for yourself, which I think is beautiful. And you really embody it. And I could just tell that it's just a part of who you are and what you do and what you were brought here to do. And I think it's beautiful. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to leave my audience with? Because I'm sure that there's women on here who are listening and have heard things that you've talked about that have really resonated with them. And so, what would you advise for someone who feels very disconnected to themselves right now?
Mm. What I would advise is to allow that feeling, to get curious about it, and to start to take an intentional moment every day just to put your hands on your body wherever it feels comfortable, to take a moment to breathe and just be with the breath, and just start a gentle, sacred practice of allowing your body to be just as it is, allowing any emotions to rise just as they wish to show up, and start a dialogue with yourself. Get curious. What's there? What is wanting to become more known to me? And breathing into that and not judging anything that comes up, allowing it to rise. And you might want to note something down. You might want to start a journal of words or drawings. You might feel different sensations come alive to you, and just allow yourself to follow any impulses to adjust, to move, to stretch. And as the days go on and this practice builds and develops, maybe this turns into putting on one of your favorite tunes and allowing your body to gently move in response,
Mm-hmm.
and
I
just
could
getting
use that
curious
right
and
now.
inspired. Yeah,
Kathy,
that would
one
be
other
my advice.
question I want to ask you, because you said to ask, what do I need right now, or what am I feeling right now? How do you know that the answer that's coming up is coming from inside of you and not just from your head? Like, how can you discern between the two?
Mm. Yes, I get this question a lot in different contexts and different forms.
Yeah.
And I would say most of the time, what is coming up will probably come from your head.
Okay.
And that's okay, because
Okay.
that's the mind doing its thing. It's doing its familiar thing. We were talking
Yeah.
about, what's familiar and what's comforting and what's our go-to. But I would get curious about there might be an immediate thing that comes to mind, but just taking a pause, and it doesn't have to be, a long pause, but just taking a pause just to check in and be like, mm, is that what my body wants? And just seeing, with that question, with that inquiry, what is the response from the body? And it
Yeah.
might be nothing to begin with, but there might be some sensations there, and there might be some feedback there. And this process, it's a it's an unfolding process of listening to that feedback and getting curious about the feedback in the body.
Yeah.
But yeah, if people have resonated with what I've shared today, they can definitely get in touch. I offer free 1 hour long sessions where we tune in with each other and get curious about what's present in their life and what season they're moving through, and how these kinds of processes can support them in their journey.
So where can people find you, Kathy?
My website is intuitiveself.com.au, and all the information on my workshops and my sessions and my free discovery calls are there. I've also got access to my shop, which has my book and lots of free resources for people to explore.
Can you send me the links for that and I will put it in the show notes? So that,
Absolutely.
yes. Kathy, this was such an enlightening conversation with you. I love the work that you're doing. I love your energy. It's very calming, very soothing. And I think it's wonderful that you're doing this and helping so many women to navigate through life in an easier, more effortlessly way. So that's beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Susan. Thank you for
Yes.
this connection and your beautiful reflections. I receive them warmly.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to meet you. I'd love to have you on again.
Beautiful. I look forward to it.
Thank you so much for listening today. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you would like some additional information, please go to the show notes. I left all of Kathy's information in there. appreciate you all so much. If you think that this episode could help someone who you know and love, please share it out with them. Also, if you're not currently following me, please be sure to subscribe to this channel. I drop a new episode every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please leave me a comment. I love hearing your comments. Until the next time, be well, stay happy, and bye for now. Take good care, everyone.
This message is sponsored by Greenlight. With school out, summer is the perfect time to teach our kids real-world money skills they'll use forever. Greenlight is a debit card and the #1 family finance and safety app used by millions of families, helping kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely. Parents can send their kids money and track their spending and saving, while kids build money confidence and skills in fun ways. Start your risk-free Greenlight trial today at greenlight.com/Spotify. That's greenlight.com/Spotify.